The nightclub was loud, hot, and filled with the kind of energy that made people forget who they were for a night. Kayla didn't drink much normally, but tonight wasn't normal. It was supposed to be her best friend's birthday, but instead, it turned into a mess of emotions, fake smiles, and shots she should have never taken. She was 21, a college girl, smart, careful, the kind of girl who usually carried pepper spray and checked the back seat of her car twice. But that night, something cracked inside her. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe the way her so-called boyfriend ghosted her 3 days ago. Maybe she just wanted to feel seen. The VIP lounge was buzzing with whispers all night. Secret Service agents in suits, keeping their distance. People were saying the president was there, not in a boring old speech way, but at a private donor party hidden in a high-end hotel bar that just so happened to be connected to the club she stumbled into. But Kayla didn't care about politics. She barely cared about anything past the next drink. She didn't remember how she got there, not really. Blurry flashes, a smooth voice asking if she was okay, strong hands helping her into a sleek black car, the scent of expensive cologne. Then, a hotel room that didn't look like a hotel room, more like a luxury apartment. Crystal glasses, a marble fireplace, lights dimmed low. Then, nothing. Morning came like a slap to the face. Her head was pounding, her body ached, and the silk sheets wrapped around her naked skin screamed a truth she wasn't ready to hear. She sat up slowly, the room spinning as she tried to piece together the nightmare she hoped wasn't real. Then she saw him, standing by the window, shirtless, sipping coffee, casually flipping through news on a tablet. His back looked familiar from 1,000 billboards and press conferences. His voice, when he turned to her, was unmistakable. "Good morning," he said, cool and confident. "You feeling okay?" Her stomach dropped, her heart froze. No, it couldn't be him. Not the President of the United States. Not the man every newspaper loved or hated. Not the man whose face was on TV more than her own father's. She pulled the sheets tighter around herself, her voice shaky. What happened last night?" He smiled like it was some kind of inside joke. "You were enthusiastic," he said casually, "and very clear about what you wanted. But if you're worried everything was consensual, don't panic." Her skin turned cold. She didn't remember any of it. Nothing. She didn't even know his name beyond the headlines. She didn't know how she got there. Didn't know how to feel. One part of her wanted to scream. Another part wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. She was a virgin before this. She'd been saving herself, maybe not for marriage, but for someone she chose. And now, her chest tightened as tears threatened to rise. The president, now casually scrolling through his phone, didn't even look at her like she was a person. Just another night, another story. She needed to live, needed to run before someone found out. But it was already too late, because outside that hotel room door, the cameras were waiting. Kayla's hands trembled as she wrapped the sheet tighter around herself, trying to steady her racing thoughts. Her mind was spinning, a whirlpool of confusion, shame, and disbelief. The moment she stepped out of the bed, she realized just how exposed she felt, not just physically, but emotionally, like she was suddenly part of something far bigger than her, a game she didn't even know she was playing. The man, the president, seemed entirely unfazed by the situation. He turned, his lips curling into a small, almost rehearsed smile. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, his voice still calm and smooth, like he had done this 1,000 times before. Her stomach churned. She wanted to shout, to ask him what kind of sick joke this was, but she couldn't find the words. Instead, she just stared at him, trying to remember any part of last night that would make sense. Had she said something? Had she agreed to this? "Do you need anything?" he asked, as though he were offering a glass of water, not a horrifying truth. Kayla could feel the weight of his eyes on her, but she couldn't meet his gaze. She stared at the ground, trying to hold back the flood of panic creeping up her chest. Her mind was still foggy, unable to fill in the gaps of last night. The flashes came in sporadic bursts, dim lighting, soft laughter, the taste of expensive whiskey. But everything felt hazy, distorted. She couldn't remember anything that had led to this. I need to leave," she said, her voice barely a whisper. He didn't respond immediately. He set down the tablet and walked toward her, his steps deliberate, almost predatory in their precision. Kayla instinctively backed up, heart pounding. "Listen, I get it," he said, his tone shifting slightly. the politeness slipping, just a little. It's overwhelming. I'm sure you're feeling a lot right now. Her head snapped up. A lot, you think? She took a step forward, despite her unease, fighting the tremor in her voice. You took advantage of me. I didn't even know who you were. How could you? He raised his hand, cutting her off. Calm down, Kayla. I didn't do anything you didn't want. The use of her name sent a jolt through her. How did he know it? Had he been watching her all night? Had this been planned? Her mind raced as she searched for the words to fight back, but nothing came. His presence was too overpowering, too cold. He was the president, one of the most powerful men in the world. What could she possibly say that would make a difference? What could she do now that she was tangled up in his world? A world where people like her, ordinary, insignificant, were nothing but pawns. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I don't remember anything. I don't even remember how I got here. Did you drug me? Did you? No, he said sharply, his expression finally flickering. Just for a moment. I didn't drug you. You were drunk, yes, but you were aware of everything that happened. Trust me. His eyes held hers for a long, uncomfortable moment, as though daring her to challenge him. But Kayla didn't know how to fight him. How to prove her innocence in a world so far out of her control. His words were like poison, slowly seeping into her mind, twisting the truth until she didn't know what to believe anymore. I'm not a monster, Kayla, he continued, his voice softer now, almost like he was trying to comfort her. I didn't do anything that wasn't agreed upon. You wanted this, maybe not at first, but by the end of the night. He trailed off, eyes darkening as he took a step closer. You wanted it. A chill ran down her spine. She backed away, shaking her head in disbelief. No, she didn't remember anything like that. She couldn't have. She was a virgin. This was all too wrong. But then the voices in her head whispered, what if he was telling the truth? What if she had somehow wanted it? She pushed those thoughts aside. No, she was not the kind of person who did things like this. She couldn't have been. But what did that make her now? What did this make him? I need to go, she said, her voice shaky but firm. Now, his gaze softened, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw a flicker of guilt, just a shadow that passed through his eyes. He turned away, moving to a door on the other side of the room. Fine, he said, almost too casually. But don't be stupid. This won't be over after you walk out that door. The press will want their answers. Her heart stopped. The press? What did he mean by that? He opened the door, revealing two Secret Service agents standing outside. They stood like statues, eyes fixed straight ahead, as though nothing in the world could touch them. Kayla froze. The weight of the situation crashed over her like a wave. She had no choice. There was no going back now. Kayla's breath caught in her throat as she stepped toward the door, her legs feeling like they were made of rubber. The Secret Service agents didn't say a word, just stared straight ahead. But she could feel their eyes tracking her every move, as though they were waiting for her to make a wrong step. The room felt suffocating. Everything she thought she knew about her life, her choices, was shattering in real time. And yet she couldn't escape. You're free to go, the president said, his voice now colder, more distant. He didn't even look at her as he motioned toward the door. But remember what I said. You'll be on their radar now. The press doesn't forget. Kayla stood there for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. The door to her freedom was right there, but she couldn't shake the feeling that walking through it would lead her straight into a nightmare she wasn't ready for. She swallowed hard. What do you mean, on their radar? What is this? The president finally turned to face her, his eyes narrowing just slightly, as if she had asked a foolish question. They'll be watching you, Kayla. They're already waiting. And when they find out who you really are, it won't be pretty. Kayla froze, her mind going blank for a moment. Who I really am? What the hell was he talking about? You think this is some kind of game? She snapped, her frustration bubbling to the surface. You think I'm just some girl you can push around because you're the president? You think I'm going to let this go? The president's lips twisted into a half smile, but it wasn't the kind of smile that reassured her. It was the kind of smile that made her feel like she was being sized up, like a chess piece that had just moved into a dangerous position. Trust me, he said, his voice low. You don't have a choice. Her chest tightened. The last thing she wanted was to be dragged into some political scandal. The idea of her face plastered all over tabloids, being used for a story she had no control over, was the last thing she needed. She had enough problems as it was. But as much as she hated it, the words kept echoing in her head. You don't have a choice. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw something, to demand answers, to make him take back everything he said. But no matter how hard she tried, there was an invisible wall between her and the reality she knew she had to face. The president didn't seem to care about her emotions. His indifference made her feel even smaller, like she was just another inconvenience in his perfect, controlled world. Look, he said, his tone suddenly changing to something more pragmatic. I didn't want this to happen. I didn't plan on this. But now it's done. There's no going back. Kayla's mind raced. She was suffocating in his presence, the weight of his power pressing down on her, making it hard to breathe. He was right. There was no going back. But what kind of life was waiting for her outside that door? Please, she begged, her voice cracking. I just want to forget this. I don't want my name dragged through the mud. I don't want people to know about this. The president's eyes softened for a split second, but it was gone before she could make sense of it. I'm sorry, Kayla. It's already too late for that. Before she could say anything else, he turned to the agents at the door. Escort her out, he ordered, his voice final. Make sure she gets to her car. Kayla's stomach twisted. She wanted to protest, but what good would it do? She was already a pawn in this political game. The press would be waiting, the cameras would be rolling, and her life as she knew it would be over. One of the agents moved toward her, his hand reaching out, and Kayla flinched instinctively. But the agent didn't touch her. He merely gestured for her to follow with no other option. Kayla walked out of the room, her heart heavy with dread. She had no idea what awaited her, but she knew she had lost something that night, something that could never be replaced. The hallway was cold, silent except for the echo of her footsteps. As they walked down the sterile white corridor, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being led to a trap. She felt like an animal in a cage, like her entire life had been turned upside down, all because of one night. At the end of the hall, the elevator doors opened, and the agent ushered her inside. The elevator was smooth, gliding effortlessly as it descended. Kayla stared at the floor, unable to bring herself to look at the agent. Her mind was still foggy, still replaying every second from the night before. The doors opened, and they stepped into the lobby. She could already hear the chatter of reporters, the cameras clicking, the flashing lights. As soon as she stepped into the lobby, all eyes were on her. The moment Kayla stepped into the lobby, it was like the world snapped into focus, and it wasn't a world she recognized. The air seemed heavier, charged with a kind of expectation. The reporters were already there, clustered in groups, waiting for something, anything. Cameras flashed, and she felt the weight of their eyes bearing down on her. Each lens a reminder that she was no longer just an ordinary girl. Her pulse quickened. She wanted to shrink back, to disappear, but there was nowhere to hide. Every step felt like a betrayal of herself. The bright lights and questions flooded her all at once, leaving her dizzy, suffocating under the pressure. Kayla, over here, what happened last night? Was it true that you were with the president? Kayla, did you sleep with him willingly, or was there something more going on? Were you drunk? Did he take advantage of you? The words came at her in a blur, each one sharper than the last. She could barely process them, but they landed like blows. The cameras zoomed in on her face, their lenses like knives, each flash a reminder that her privacy was gone, that her life, the one she had worked so hard to build, was shattered into a million pieces. The Secret Service agents flanked her on either side, escorting her through the crowd. But it felt like they were protecting the president, not her. She was the story now. The girl who somehow ended up in the president's bed. The girl who had ruined everything. Please, Kayla whispered, but no one seemed to hear her. I didn't do anything wrong. Her words were lost in the noise. She could feel the sweat on her palms, the chill creeping up her spine. She wished she could just disappear, that this would all go away, but deep down, she knew it never would. A reporter, one with short dark hair and a sharp, calculating look in her eyes, stepped forward. She didn't shout, didn't ask questions. Instead, she leaned in closer, her voice low, almost too soft for anyone else to hear. I know what you're thinking, the reporter said, her words cold and cutting. You didn't plan this. You're just some girl who got caught up in a situation way over her head. But trust me, Kayla, the public doesn't care about that. They want the story, they want the dirt. And now, you're the story, whether you like it or not. Kayla froze, her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to fight back, to scream that this wasn't her fault, that she hadn't asked for any of this. But the words died on her lips. The reporter had said the truth in a way that hit harder than any headline ever could. She wasn't just part of the story anymore. She was the story. The agents continued to push forward, guiding her toward the exit. But Kayla could already feel the world shifting around her. She was no longer just the girl from college. She was a scandal now. Her name would be dragged through the mud for days, weeks, maybe even years. Outside the hotel, the paparazzi were worse. The flashes of cameras assaulted her from every direction. She could barely keep her eyes open as they flashed in rapid succession, their questions coming at her faster than she could process. Did you sleep with the president for money? Was this a deal gone wrong? One shouted. Do you regret it? Another asked, a wicked grin spreading across his face. The words were sharp, each one cutting deeper than the last. Kayla's knees felt weak. She was drowning in a sea of strangers, each of them trying to get a glimpse into her soul, trying to see something they could use against her. Get in the car, one of the Secret Service agents muttered, his voice tight, but there was no real comfort in it. He was as much a prisoner of this moment as she was. He opened the door to the black SUV and ushered her inside. As soon as the door slammed shut, the world outside went silent. Kayla sank back into the leather seat, her heart racing in her chest. She couldn't breathe. What now? What was she supposed to do now that the world knew her name? She was just a girl who had been drunk and confused, who had made a mistake she could never take back. But now, the mistake was out there for everyone to see, and the consequences were already unfolding before her. She closed her eyes, her mind still spinning with everything that had just happened. The voices in her head were overwhelming, each one telling her something different. You should have known better. You're a victim here. It's your fault, too. She didn't know who she was anymore. Who could she trust when the world itself seemed to be against her? When every corner she turned, every conversation, every glance from a stranger was a reminder that she was the story, not the person she used to be. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Without thinking, she pulled it out and unlocked it. A text from her best friend, Jenna. I saw the news. I'm so sorry. Kayla, are you okay? The words blurred in front of her eyes, but she couldn't even bring herself to respond. What could she say? How could she explain this to the one person who should have been there, who should have understood? Her phone buzzed again. Another message, another headline, another question she couldn't answer. Another reminder that she would never be able to undo this. The car sped through the streets, but no matter how fast it went, there was no escaping the reality that was now her life. The drive felt endless. Every turn, every bump in the road seemed to echo her mounting dread. Kayla's thoughts swirled in a haze of confusion, regret, and fear. But the hardest part wasn't the flashing lights or the reporters' voices outside the car. It was the silence that filled the SUV as it sped away from the hotel. She sat in the back seat, her hands clutching her phone, though she barely had the strength to look at it. The world had already started moving without her. The scandal was already out, and soon it would be everywhere. It didn't matter how hard she tried to escape it. She had been catapulted into a nightmare, and there was no waking up from it. The car slowed to a stop, pulling into a private garage. The familiar building loomed before her apartment building, the one place she used to call home. It felt like a lifetime ago now. Kayla wasn't sure what she expected, maybe some sense of peace, of solace. But instead, the second the door opened, it felt like the world was waiting for her. It wasn't just the reporters or the paparazzi. This time it was her life. The people who mattered most, the ones who would now be forced to look at her through the lens of scandal. She stepped out of the car, her legs shaky, and the cool air hit her skin, sharp and biting. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, the number was unfamiliar. She almost didn't answer, but the dread of unanswered questions gnawed at her. Hello, she answered, her voice cracking. Kayla. It was her mother's voice. It was shaky, but there was a cold, sharp edge to it. What the hell is going on? Kayla froze, her stomach dropped. She had known this moment would come, but hearing her mother's disappointment so clearly in her voice still cut through her like a blade. I didn't mean for this to happen. I don't know how it happened, her mother interrupted, her tone rising. I saw the news. Kayla, what do you think you're doing? You're in the papers. You're on TV. Slept with the president. Do you even understand what you've done? Tears welled in Kayla's eyes, but she blinked them away. I didn't ask for this. I didn't plan it. You don't know what happened. You don't. You should have known better." Her mother spat. "You've always been so careful, so responsible. What happened to you, Kayla? This is disgraceful. I don't know how I'm supposed to look anyone in the eye after this." Her mother's words hit harder than anything she'd heard all day. It wasn't just anger, it was betrayal. Kayla could feel her mother pulling away from her, and it cut deeper than anything the press had thrown at her. "Mom, please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted to forget for one night." But her mother's silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Kayla squeezed her eyes shut, her hand pressing against her forehead. She had always been the good daughter, the smart one, the one who didn't make mistakes. But now, she was nothing but a headline. "I have to go," her mother finally said, her voice tight with restrained emotion. I'll talk to you later." The line went dead. The harsh finality of her mother's words echoed in Kayla's mind long after the call ended. She was alone, and it wasn't just because of the physical distance. It was the emotional distance, the growing chasm between her and the people she loved. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jenna, her best friend. Kayla hesitated. She couldn't go through this conversation again, not with the whole world watching. But Jenna wasn't her mother. She wasn't the press. "Hey, I know this is insane, but I just saw everything. Please tell me you're okay." Kayla felt a lump form in her throat. She typed back slowly, her fingers hesitant. "I'm not okay. I don't know what to do. The whole world thinks I'm a joke." She hit send, but the weight of those words hit harder than anything she could have written. She wasn't just a joke, she was ruined. Her phone buzzed again almost instantly. "You're not a joke, Kayla, but I don't understand. You don't remember what happened." Kayla squeezed her eyes shut, the guilt eating her alive. She couldn't explain what happened. She barely understood it herself. How could she expect Jenna to understand? "I don't know what happened, but I wish it hadn't." There was a long pause. Then the reply came. "You need to talk to someone. You can't deal with this on your own. This is too big, and I'm scared for you." The words struck her like a slap. She knew she couldn't go through this alone. She had to face everything that was coming, but she was so tired, so exhausted from everything. Kayla stepped into the elevator, her mind running a mile a minute. When the doors opened to her floor, the familiar hallway of her apartment greeted her, but it no longer felt like home. She couldn't even remember the last time she felt safe here. The door to her apartment clicked open, and she stepped inside. The silence was deafening, but then, as she dropped her keys on the table, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a news alert. Kayla Holt, the young woman at the center of the president's scandal, speaks out in an exclusive interview. Her heart stopped. Interview. She hadn't agreed to anything like that. But the headline didn't matter. The damage was already done. The world was already turning her into something she didn't recognize, a pawn in a game she had never asked to play. The days that followed felt like a blur. Kayla hardly left her apartment, except for when she absolutely had to. The constant bombardment from the media was relentless. Every time she stepped outside, every time she checked her phone, there were new headlines, new stories, new rumors. It wasn't just the press anymore. People who had been her friends were avoiding her, their voices cold and distant. She hadn't heard from Jenna in a few days, and every attempt to reach out felt like it was falling on deaf ears. Her messages went unanswered, and the few times she called, the line would click off after a few seconds of silence. The isolation was suffocating. She spent her days pacing the apartment, staring at the TV as the scandal unfolded in real. Her face was plastered everywhere, the news, social media, tabloids, and, with every new report, the story twisted further from what she knew to be true. She could see the smirks on the faces of the anchors, the subtle judgments in the voices of the reporters. To them, she wasn't a real person. She was a scandal they could sell, a scandal they could dissect. But the worst part was what she saw in the comments. The people who had been cruel, who didn't know her at all, were the loudest. There were those who called her a gold digger, others who called her a homewrecker. Some said she was just another girl who had thrown herself at power, trying to find a way to be seen. Kayla had never been a fighter. She had always been the quiet one, the thoughtful one, the one who avoided confrontation. But now, she found herself looking in the mirror, hating what she saw. She wasn't the same person she was a week ago. She wasn't the girl she'd always prided herself on being. The girl who was in control. The girl who had a future planned. Out. That person was gone. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Jenna. Kayla, we need to talk. Kayla stared at the message for a long time. She had been waiting for this moment, hoping it would come, praying it wouldn't. What could Jenna possibly say now? What could anyone say to make this better? Her hands were shaking as she typed her response. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix this. It's all over. Jenna, my life, everything I thought I knew, is ruined. I can't change any of it. The phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Jenna. Without thinking, Kayla answered. Kayla, Jenna's voice came through the line, hesitant and broken. I'm sorry. I should have been there. I've been so confused. I didn't know what to think, but I don't think you understand just how deep this goes. Kayla felt the tears start to sting her eyes, but she swallowed them down. How deep could it get? Jenna, you've seen the news. The president's not just some guy. He's the most powerful man in the world. And I'm just a girl who got caught up in something way over my head. Jenna was silent for a long moment, before speaking again. That's what I'm saying. You're not just anyone, Kayla. You're in a world now where you can't just walk away. The media will tear you apart, but they'll also elevate you. People like you can become something else. You can leverage it. Kayla flinched at the word, leverage. It was like a slap to the face. The last thing she ever wanted was to use herself, to turn her suffering into some kind of capital. She wasn't a pawn. She wasn't a tool to be used. No, Kayla said, her voice trembling. I'm not going to play that game. I just want this to go away. I want it to be over. I get that, Jenna replied. But you need to understand something. You're in a position now that no one else is. People want answers, Kayla, and they're going to come to you. I don't want you to get used by them. I don't want to be used by anyone, Jenna. Kayla shot back, the frustration in her voice growing. I didn't ask for any of this, I know, but the question is, what are you going to do about it? The question hit her like a punch to the stomach. What was she going to do about it? She hadn't even thought that far ahead. She was just surviving, trying to make it through each day. But the reality of her situation was sinking in. She had to make a choice. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. The silence on the other end of the line hung heavy before Jenna spoke again. Kayla, I'm going to help you. I'll be there, no matter what. But you need to figure out what kind of person you want to be. You can't just let this destroy you. Kayla let the words sink in, feeling the weight of them settle deep in her chest. Jenna was right. In a way, she couldn't let this define her. She had to find a way to survive it. But how? Kayla looked at the TV again, her heart sinking as she saw another headline flash across the screen. Kayla Holt, the president's scandalous. Night more details emerge. This was never going to end, was it? Kayla's world had shifted again. The constant noise, the flashing cameras, the relentless media coverage, it had all started to fade into the background. She wasn't sure if it was because she'd grown numb to it, or because she had simply stopped fighting it. Every day she woke up to headlines, news reports, and social media posts about her, about what happened. It felt like living in a nightmare, where she couldn't even remember the beginning. But somewhere in the middle of it all, she realized something. She couldn't keep running. She couldn't stay holed up in her apartment, afraid to face the world. The longer she hid, the longer this story would follow her. The press had created their narrative, and the more she resisted, the deeper she sunk into their version of events. She had to take control, or at least try. The first step was deciding to speak. She had received countless calls from PR agencies, all offering their services to help spin the story in her favor. Some had even gone as far as suggesting she'd do a sit-down interview, a carefully crafted, tearful moment where she could apologize to the public, express regret, and move on. But that wasn't her. She hadn't done anything wrong, at least. Nothing that could justify the circus that had followed her into the spotlight. What she needed was a chance to explain, a chance to be heard for who she really was, not the scandalous figure the media had created, not the naive girl who had been caught in the web of a powerful man's influence. But how could she do that? How could she convince the world to see her as something more than the drunk girl who'd slept with the president? She thought about it for days, what to say, how to say it, and then it hit her. Maybe the interview wasn't such a bad idea after all, but it needed to be on her terms. She would control the narrative, not the president, not the media. Kayla picked up her phone and dialed Jenna's number. Her best friend picked up after the third ring, her voice a mixture of relief and apprehension. Kayla, are you okay? I've been trying to reach you. I'm fine, Kayla said, though it didn't feel true. She knew she wasn't fine, not yet. Listen, I need your help. There was a pause on the other end of the line before Jenna answered. What is it? Anything. I want to do an interview. Not with just anyone. I want to do it on my terms. I need someone who'll let me speak my truth without twisting it. Jenna hesitated. Kayla, are you sure? I mean, this could make things worse. People will still— I don't know. They might use it against you. I know, Kayla whispered. But if I don't do something now, they'll never stop. The media will decide who I am for me, and I don't want that. I want to be the one to tell my story, not them. There was a long pause. Finally, Jenna sighed. Okay, I'll help. But you need to be prepared for the fallout. It won't be easy. Kayla nodded, even though Jenna couldn't see her. I know, but it's the only way to get some control back. They spent the next few hours putting together a plan. They contacted a small, independent news station known for handling sensitive topics with care, and Kayla agreed to meet with one of their senior reporters, who had built a reputation for being fair and honest, not sensationalizing stories for the sake of ratings. Kayla stood in front of the mirror, staring at herself. It was strange seeing herself, not as the girl everyone thought they knew, but as someone who was about to step into a new chapter. She felt both terrified and empowered, a rare combination that she didn't know how to balance. When the time came, Kayla walked into the small studio where the interview would take place. It was quiet, subdued, nothing like the chaos of the outside world. She felt her shoulders relax just a little as she saw the reporter, a middle-aged man with soft eyes and a calm demeanor. His reputation preceded him. He had a knack for cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of things. Kayla, he greeted, his voice warm, not the cold, cutting tone she'd grown used to. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me today. Thank you for giving me the chance, she replied, her voice steadier than she thought it would be. The camera clicked on, and the interview began. Let's start from the beginning, the reporter said. You've been thrust into the public eye for something that wasn't of your choosing. People have seen the headlines, they've heard the rumors, but I want to hear your side of the story. How did you end up in this situation? Kayla took a deep breath, her hands gripping the arms of the chair. She had been preparing for this moment for days, but now that she was here, with the world watching, it felt real. This was it. I went to a party, she began, her voice surprisingly calm. I didn't know the president would be there. I didn't know anything about the situation until I was already too deep in it. I was drunk, yes, and I made some decisions that I regret, but I wasn't taken advantage of. I was confused, overwhelmed, and I didn't know who to trust. I never wanted this to happen. The reporter nodded, allowing her to continue. Kayla's heart beat faster, but she kept going. I'm not perfect, she said. I've made mistakes, but I'm not a villain. I didn't use anyone, and I wasn't used. I'm just a girl who made a mistake one night, and now my life has been turned upside down because of it. She paused, letting the words sink in. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for the chance to be seen for who I really am. Not as a headline, not as a scandal. Just as Kayla, the reporter, let the silence hang in the air for a moment, as if considering her words. Finally, he nodded. Thank you for sharing that, Kayla. I think the world needs to hear this. Kayla's heart settled just a little as the camera turned off. The interview was done, but the real work had just begun. The interview aired late that evening, and by morning, it felt like the world had erupted. Kayla had hoped for some measure of peace, some understanding. She had wanted to be seen for who she truly was, someone who had made a mistake, yes, but not someone deserving of the hate the media had thrown at her. Instead, the aftermath was a chaotic storm of mixed reactions. She had prepared for some backlash, but the intensity of the response took her by surprise. The news outlets couldn't get enough. Kayla's name was everywhere. Some headlines were sympathetic. Kayla Holt speaks out, a victim of circumstance. Others were less forgiving. Kayla Holt, the girl who lured the president into her web. The social media reactions were even worse. Some of the comments were surprisingly supportive people who believed her, who understood that she had been caught in an impossible situation. They felt for her, seeing her not as a villain, but as a young woman who had been taken advantage of by a system far bigger than her. But the loudest voices came from the ones who couldn't let go of the scandal. She knew exactly what she was doing. She got what she wanted, and now she's playing the victim. She's just trying to save face. Kayla scrolled through the endless posts, her finger moving slower and slower as she saw the same comments repeating themselves. The accusations, the mockery. It was as though the world was waiting for her to fall apart, for her to collapse under the weight of their judgment, and it almost worked. But amidst the noise, Kayla felt a strange sense of clarity. The voices of the people who supported her, even if they were a small fraction, meant something. They reminded her that she wasn't completely alone. It wasn't about winning the world's approval, it was about reclaiming her own sense of self. And that was the first step. The worst part came when the public started to speculate about the president's role. He had stayed silent in the wake of the scandal, a master at playing the role of the untouchable politician. But the media didn't let him off the hook for long. Soon, people were demanding answers. Was he truly innocent in all of this? Was it an abuse of power? The questions mounted, and with them, the pressure. Kayla's phone buzzed constantly, but it was the last message she wanted to see. It was from the reporter who had conducted her interview. "I need to speak with you. It's about the interview and some new developments." Her heart raced. She had barely had time to process everything, and now something else was coming. Was it more fallout? Had the president's camp issued some kind of statement? Was this all about to get even worse? She called him back, feeling her palms sweat. As the phone rang, "Kayla," the reporter said, when he picked up. "I'm afraid I've got some news." "What's going on?" Kayla's voice was barely above a whisper. "I've been getting some tips about the situation from sources close to the president's team. Someone's leaking information that wasn't in the public eye until now." Kayla's stomach flipped. "What kind of information?" "It seems that the night you were with the president, there's something more that's been kept under wraps. There are rumors that this wasn't an isolated incident. The president has been involved with other women in similar situations." Kayla could barely breathe. Her chest tightened, and her head spun. "What are you saying? You mean he—" "Exactly," the reporter continued, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "It's all starting to come out. There's talk of a pattern, of him using his power to manipulate situations like yours. The public doesn't know yet, but this could change everything." Kayla felt a sick feeling in her gut. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about a man who had been using his position of power to hide his true nature. This was the kind of story the media would eat up. The kind that could destroy careers. But as much as her heart raced with fear, something else was bubbling to the surface. Anger. She wasn't the only one with something to lose. This man, the president, had been living a lie for years, using people like Kayla to cover his tracks, to create a world where he was untouchable. And now, the truth was starting to seep out, one leak at a time. "I want to be part of this," Kayla said, her voice gaining strength. "Whatever comes next, I want to be involved. If this is about to go public, I don't want to be seen as just another girl in his web. I want my voice to be heard." The reporter was quiet for a moment, but then he spoke. "Are you sure? This could escalate everything. It'll put you right back in the spotlight, even worse than before." Kayla took a deep breath, staring out the window at the city below. She had already been dragged into this. She couldn't hide anymore, but now, she had a chance to do something that felt like reclaiming her power. She wasn't just the victim anymore. She wasn't just the girl in the story. She was part of the story, and she would make sure her truth was part of the narrative. "I'm sure," she said, her voice firm. The road ahead would be long, filled with more public scrutiny and personal turmoil, but for the first time since everything had fallen apart, Kayla felt like she had some control. Whatever happened next, she would face it head-on. She wasn't just going to survive this, she was going to make sure the world knew her name for who she truly was.